my constituents, as I speak to you, 8 months down the lane, since the spillage from the Akosombo and Pond dams by the Volta River Authority, thousands continue to live in tents. We have on our own built settlements for 600 of them. But if you look at the scale of the disaster, we certainly, depending on the benevolence of Ghanaians, corporate Ghana, NGOs, embassies, and I must thank the good people of this country for the solidarity and the support they extended to us. We've mobilized that to do some housing and some other interventions to alleviate the plight of our people. But certainly, that cannot be adequate. Looking at the sheer numbers, we are talking about some 36 to 39,000 displaced people. If you look at the affected communities across the various constituencies. And the houses, according to NADMO, not less than 1,200 houses across from our constituency all the way to the other affected constituencies. So on a daily basis, when we go around and we see the conditions, how people are living in destitution, living like refugees, you know, in their own homeland, living in tents, in congested classrooms, you cannot help but be very, very happy for the people of Apiati. Because at the end of the day, we are all Ghanaians. We share a common humanity. And so if there is a disaster in any part of Ghana, we are all affected. It diminishes our collective well-being and our collective value as a people. And so even though it's been long in coming, I take the view that government could have delivered these Apiati resettlement homes much earlier. The attitude of government when there is a disaster, the efficiency that must be brought to bear, we still do not see that. So Apiati explosion happened on the 20th of January 2022. It's taken some 2.5 years for these resettlement homes to be completed and handed over yesterday. The question that arises is that these 2.5 years, how were the people surviving? Where were they sojourning? How did they keep body and soul together? 2.5 years. I mean, we've seen other countries, other governments across the world, when there are disasters on this scale, they mobilize, and within weeks, they deliver.
I'm sure in the case of Apiati, they provided some temporary
there was some
relief for them, and then decided to rebuild the township.
Yes.
So that's what is taking the 2+ years. But they provided them some temporary relief.
But that notwithstanding, I take the view that this could have been delivered much earlier. I mean, if you look at what we did with our housing projects in 7 weeks, I really think that we need to compel our governments to be more efficient, to be more responsive to the plight of the people. This is a disaster. And I'm sure that if a certain urgent mindset, bringing on board our expertise, even our military, the Ghana Armed Forces, and just focusing on urgent relief, I'm sure that maximum within 4 to 6 months, what we are seeing in Apiati could have been delivered, including all the phases. This is phase 1. We are told that phase 2 is going to follow. So I think that we should consistently push ourselves as a people towards excellence, towards being more empathetic and responsive in a timeous manner to the plight of our people. We see what happens elsewhere, what happens in other jurisdictions when disaster strikes. And I think that we have to really emphasize that point so that moving forward we can put in place a blueprint, the mechanisms for swift response when these disasters occur. I must also add that if you look at what happened in the immediate aftermath of Apiate, you saw government moving in to get those responsible for the disaster to take responsibility. Doc, you remember the company called Maxam?
Yes.
Maxam.
Yes. They were fined.
Immediately they were fined $6 million. So that helped as some seed funds for the restoration effort. Their license was revoked. For their license to be restored, they had to pay $1 million. And then additional $5 million between March 1st, 2022 and August 2023. So I believe that they will have paid all the $6 million by August last year. Compare that to the attitude that government has demonstrated when it comes to the role of the VRA in the Akosombo Dam spillage. Why is the Volta River Authority not being asked to take responsibility, not being asked to dedicate funds towards the rehabilitation? Because if you look at what happened in our constituencies, the Volta River Authority decided on their own that on the 15th of March they'll open the floodgates. It's not a natural disaster. It's not like an accident in Apiati. They decided. And by all indications, the emergency preparedness that they should have engaged in, getting the people out of harm's way, making sure that the people are evacuated with their valuables to higher ground, to safe locations, all of that were not done. And yet the VRA has gotten away with murder. Literally.
In the Joy documentary, I could tell a trading of accusations between Meteorological Agency and the VRA.
And the VRA, yeah. As to who didn't.
What kind of accusations?
About
early warning,
the forecast,
yes,
weather forecast and all of that. You know. So we are asking,
but I thought,
who takes responsibility?
There's going to be an investigation. It hasn't been done.
Yes, that hasn't been done. That hasn't.
Because it's only after the investigation that we'll see where the blame.
But in the case of Apiati,
well, at least it's 8 months on.
Yes, 8 months on.
Yes.
And you see, why are we waiting for only a parliamentary inquiry? The last time I checked with my deep throat sources at the VRA, they haven't even done an internal inquiry. So as I sit here, I'm living in fear of a recurrence. What lessons have been learned? And in this era of climate change, there's no guarantee that this will be prevented. Nobody has been asked to take responsibility. Nobody has been sanctioned. Nobody is bearing the brunt. It's as though we are no human beings.
This is extremely shameful.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. So, in the case of Apiati, Maxam is made to take responsibility. They are fined. Why is VRA being allowed to rather blame others, to pass the buck? As member of parliament for the area, VRA could not even call us that you are stakeholders. We are about to open the floodgates. These are the measures that we expect you, your chiefs, your assemblymen, DCs, key community leaders, take these measures. It took us by surprise. And VRA has not been sanctioned. They have not been fined. They have not been asked to play any role in the restoration of lives, livelihoods, and normalcy in North Town, the epicenter, and the other constituencies. They have the effrontery to be blaming the Meteorological Agency and others, blaming everybody else other than themselves. Why? And
so
then,
what has the 80 million cedis been spent on?
And then the 80 million cedis. When we had that news. It was contained in the speech of the president at the 6th March address. We filed urgent questions to find out from the Works and Housing Minister what has been done with the 80 million cedis, what it was used for. Because it came to us as a surprise. The Works and Housing Minister said that he would have to provide a breakdown later. He was not sure if it has been set aside. There was a whole debate for over an hour, whether it's a set aside or it is a utilization. They couldn't tell us what it has been used for because there's nothing on the ground that shows exactly what the money has been used for. Absolutely nothing. So how do we feel as a people, as a country, that 8 months down the lane? I remember I filed another urgent question about Saglemi housing. Fortunately, Saglemi is less than a 40-minute drive from the epicenter, from Mefe. Again, the Works and Housing Minister tells us that they cannot provide Saglemi as a temporary housing for the people because there are some final works that have to be done in terms of water and connecting electricity and all of that. 8 months, we cannot connect water, electricity to Saglemi. We are allowing the Saglemi housing project to rot. I have no issue. This is without prejudice to accountability questions that the government may have. Continue with your accountability matters in court. If anybody has done anything wrong, if Ghana didn't get value for money, go ahead with your court cases. But at least put what has been put up by President Mahama to good use. A building project which is more than 90% complete, which can help alleviate the plight of your people, the suffering masses, victims of the VRA, no fault of theirs. They've done absolutely nothing to deserve what has happened to them. And yet, less than 40 kilometers, we drive past Saglemi every day. We see Saglemi empty and go and provide food and relief items to our fellow compatriots living in tents. Where is the conscience of the nation? Is this not a scar on the conscience of the nation? And as we speak, government has done absolutely nothing in terms of reconstruction and in terms of compensation. I would have thought that even if you can't start building houses for the people, at least come and compensate them. Start some compensation.